All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name's Seth Miranda. This is the Adorama event space at Adorama itself at 42 West 18th Street. I got my man Tom Cubby with me today because we've got a pretty exclusive look at this thing right now. This is the new Sony BURANO. You announced it at IBC. It is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. Now that I see it, you only see pictures of it forever, right? And you always go, that button should be this big. Next to the mount, it's this big. You know, you always try to like figure it out.
Sure.
But here it is, and I think there's a lot of questions about what exactly is the philosophy behind it, where it sits in the line, what it actually is, the specs, all that stuff. So I'm gonna just kick it right to you to go through it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Seth, and thanks everybody for being here today. Again, my name's Tom Cubby. I'm Senior Sales Support Engineer for Sony Electronics, and we're really excited about this brand new digital motion picture camera called BURANO. As you can see from the image on the slide, it's a beautiful camera. It's sporting the Cine Alta logo, so there's a lot behind that. So let's first take a look at what is BURANO, and I guess we'll start off with comparing it to a Venice 2, because there's a lot of things it has in common, but also some different things that you might be more familiar with an FX6 or an FX9, even Alpha. So if we take a look at the left-hand side, we have Venice, super high quality imagery, right? Highest quality, glass ND filters, stops 1 through 8, so 0.3 to 0.24, and scalability, right? That's an 8.6K sensor, and XOCN is the record format that is used in both XT, ST, and LT. So those are different levels of our RAW that give you different quality and different data rates that allow you to shoot longer if you choose to go with lower data rates. And of course, that uses the AXS memory. Now, if we look over on the BURANO side, we still have the 8K sensor, but now we're going to be at 17.9 at 30 frames per second is your maximum frame rate and resolution at 6K, at 8K, I'm sorry. XOCN LT, and we'll get into a little bit of that later on. And now we're using a different kind of media, which is our CF Express Type B. So where are the similarities? 8K full frame, dual base ISO recording, and 16 stops of latitude, both featuring E and PL mount, and the operability is very similar.
So now, right off the bat, it's a nice compliment to get a matching image with the Venice 2. Exactly.
It has that Venice look, that S709 that everybody fell in love with. Now, some things that are different. The electronic variable ND, and although it's different, it's not brand new technology. It's something that Sony's had in our lineup of cameras for quite some time now. The electronic variable ND is an extremely powerful technology that allows you to not only have 2 to 7 stops of ND at 1/3 stop increments, but also use it in an auto mode that, we can get into that a little bit later, that allows you to have a lot of flexibility and do a lot of really creative things in your shooting. It's super small and lightweight, as you can see. Weighs approximately 5 pounds, which is just about a pound or so heavier than an FX9. Okay, so extremely lightweight, but very, very durable. Phase detection, autofocus, and subject recognition. So Sony being the leader in digital imaging and image sensors, our autofocus system is absolutely remarkable, and it just keeps getting better and better. We'll go into a little bit about the phase detection as well. And then, of course, it's designed for solo style operability, but you can use it in multiple person crews as well. As I mentioned earlier, the E-mount, and of course, something new, in-body image stabilization. And that's new in that it's combined with electronic variable ND. Okay, so some of the key features. This is a new concept in a digital cinema camera with great mobility. The full frame 8.6K sensor, XOCN LT. So XOCN LT is going to give you data rates very similar to XAVC class 480. So you're able to get very low data rates, yet still have all the advantages of shooting a RAW recording. You have the PL mount adapter, which is right here. So this is going to be essentially the same type of adapter that you see on our Venice cameras. There's 6 captive screws on the bolt to mount it to the camera, and then you're able to transform the camera into a camera that handles PL with all the lens data, remove it, and we are able to use E-mount lenses of any type, whether you want to have a fast prime, a zoom. In the case here, I have a really small prime here to keep the body small for gimbal work. E-mount allows you to have some additional features that you wouldn't get in a PL mount camera, like in the fast hybrid autofocus system. It is, as I mentioned before, the world's first digital cinema camera that's got in-body image stabilization and electronic variable ND in the same camera. That's pretty special. So that in-body image stabilization stabilizes your image not just with E-mount lenses, but also with PL glass.
Nice.
And the electronic variable ND, again, a very powerful combination. So to have both of those in one camera, to not have to make that choice, well, I want in-body or I want a built-in variable ND, now you've got both.
Well, you're talking about a light, small camera that can then do the electronic variable D as you're going in through like outdoor to indoor, all that on the fly. And you're able to walk with it, keep the image stable and smooth. It really is just like, go, right?
Absolutely, Seth, absolutely. And so its unique form factor allows for both solo shooting and project style shooting. The recording media is VPG 400 certified CF Express Type B. Now that's really important, the VPG certified. We'll touch on that in a little bit. So I mentioned the in-body image stabilization and the electronic variable ND. Who here is familiar with the electronic variable ND? Anyone? A couple of folks? Okay. So the way that gets implemented, you can use the little plus minus buttons on the side of the camera that allow you to engage or disengage the ND, essentially bring in an LCD panel that you change the ND by either turning the dial or plus or minus adding more ND, right? Adding an assignable button for auto functionality allows you to do some really special things. Think about those times where you're outdoors and you have to go from sunlight, really bright sunlight, to heavy shade, right? And you're changing your aperture because you're not wanting to flip NDs. So you change your aperture, and what happens when you change your aperture on a full frame camera and you're shooting wide open for that creative look? Well, you're gonna get changes in your depth of field that aren't gonna necessarily help the story. They're gonna take away, be a little distracting when you say that. If your background's going in and out of focus as you're going from sun to shade, and now all of a sudden you're able to direct as the story.
Are you telling me you don't like the creative decision to make it look like you're at the eye doctor, to fly through ND filters mechanically? Are you saying you don't like that?
Well, I know that's always my favorite part of going to the eye doctor. Yes or no?
Did you go to school for this? No.
So having this electronic variable ND, it's not just the fact that it's 2 to 7 stops, but the fact that you can adjust it in 1/3 stop increments. So there's a switch on the side of the camera that I can flip over from presets to variable. And in that variable mode, I'm simply turning a dial that when you see it operate, acts just like an aperture in terms of how smooth it operates. Then that allows you to select the aperture that you want, whether it's wide open, whether it's a 5/6, whatever that is, whatever that depth of field is that you want. You might be shooting with the sun to your back and you don't have a choice but to shoot that background, and that's not the best background that you want, but that's the way the lighting works best. So now I can defocus the background and still have that control with my ND. Some other things you can do, a depth of field pull. So again, putting the camera into an auto mode for the ND, I'm able to select a focus point for my subject, select a depth of field. I like to tell a little story. Like, let's say you're doing a shoot and it's you or your talent is talking about their childhood home. And you have both in focus, so you have a large depth of field. And then as they get into this story about their home and they start to get emotional, then you want to bring that attention to the subject. So how do you do that? Well, controlling your depth of field is a way of doing that. So now you slowly open your aperture. The auto ND is compensating on the fly, and it's giving you that change in the depth of field without the change in exposure. And the effect is you just get drawn right into the subject, right into that deep emotion. How powerful is that?
No, it's a good tool, and it's this. It just unlocks another layer of creativity without having to make choices, right? It's not like a limitation of the gear anymore. You know, it's not a limitation of the tool anymore.
Exactly. And like I said, we've had cameras that have done that before, but not cameras that also had in-body image stabilization. So as I mentioned before, this is a first. To have both electronic variable ND and IBIS, in-body image stabilization. It works in both PL glass for pitch, roll, and yaw. When I was down in Atlanta, I kept saying y'all, but it's yaw. And
how'd that go over? I just gotta know. How'd that end up?
I don't know, got a chuckle here and there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the E-mount, you've got the 5-axis, so the additional X and Y. So actually had some folks hold it on their shoulder and we're really impressed with how it works. The camera is actually so intelligent that it recognizes whether it's an E-mount lens. In the menu, it'll say, I just lost my thought. It'll say the steady shot function. And then when you switch and put PL glass on there, it actually says PL image stabilization. So it'll switch automatically from steady shot to PL image stabilization. There's a low and a high for PL stabilization, and there's steady shot standard and steady shot active for E-mount. Now, when you do go into those higher levels, you are going to get some cropping.
Okay.
But if you're just in the low mode for PL, and you're just in the standard mode of steady shot, there's no cropping. It's all done by the image sensor itself.
So it's combining mechanical and electronic stabilization in one. When it does the crop, it's given that movement ability.
Yeah, you're adding the electronic when you crop in.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the image sensor itself, as I mentioned before, it's an 8K image sensor, but this one's special. It's got autofocus built in. And if you know anything about our autofocus systems, our alpha cameras are the fastest, most accurate autofocus systems in the world. We have face and eye detection, subject recognition, new technologies where we have AI processors that are dedicated just to recognize the subjects. And that works in both full frame and Super 35 modes with a dual base ISO that is the same as what you would have in a Venice 2. So both 800 and 3200 as dual base ISOs.
Nice.
Okay. 16 stops of latitude, again, just like our Venice 2. And what's amazing and what's great about a dual base ISO, and if you're not familiar with a dual base ISO, it allows you to switch between ISOs, one for normal lighting, bright lighting, another for lower light situations. So you could switch between those two modes without that jump in noise, and it allows you to have a lot of flexibility in your shooting environments. So if you're outdoors on a bright sunny day, you're probably not going to need 3200. You can switch down to 8, use your electronic variable NDs, but then you're indoors, you need that little kick of light. You still want to maintain that same low noise level, you still want to maintain that same dynamic range, 16 stops. You get that in both 800 and 3200. And the color science matches that of the Venice and Venice 2. So putting these cameras, putting the Burano camera together on a shoot with a Venice or a Venice 2 is an easy thing to do because of the color science match. Okay, but again, the advantages of that fast hybrid autofocus, having the camera on a gimbal, doing a walk and talk. I think a lot of people don't realize when you're doing a walk and talk, and especially again, we'll go to that shallow depth of field look that you want, and you're trying to keep pace with somebody that's, we'll say you're 8 feet, 10 feet away, whatever that distance might be, and they start walking a little fast because they're nervous or they're walking a little bit slower and you're walking too fast, and all of a sudden now you're chasing your focus again, right? But with that autofocus system, you're able to focus on the framing, on the lighting, on the conversation that you're having in that situation that allows you to have full control. You're not worried about the focus that you can't see under your feet and trip on a rock and there goes your $25,000 investment. So you want to be able to have all the tools you can in one camera, and this camera really does have so many tools in it. Having, again, the electronic variable LED, and I'm saying a lot of these over and over and over because it really is to have all three of these powerful features in the camera, the fast hybrid autofocus, the electronic variable LED, and the image stabilization, and then still have a dual base ISO. I mean, that's an incredible camera.
Yeah.
And I don't know how familiar you are with our fast hybrid autofocus system, but incorporates not only contrast, which is traditional focus systems, but it's mainly based on what's called phase detection. And so there are 627 phase detection points built right into the image sensor that cover 94% vertically, 94% horizontally, giving you a total coverage of 89% of the entire image area. So everything but on the outer edges. So you can frame a subject left, frame the subject right, and still have that autofocus system work. You can use the face and eye detection, so you can exclude other subjects and have face only, or just give it face priority if you want to do some creative things like having a subject walk towards the camera and walk off camera, leaving your background out of focus, making for a nice transition. Right. So you can get real creative. Just because it's auto, you don't want to have that thought that you don't have control over it. You have control over the speed of the autofocus, how quickly it transitions from one subject to another, and again, all those face priority or face only modes in the autofocus system. I love it. It's been on our other cameras, our alpha cameras, our FX9, 6, FX3, even our FR7, our PTZ camera that's full frame. So this is complementing the entire line, and it's actually got so many technologies combined together in one camera. I'm super excited about it. Now, in terms of the resolutions, there are 7 resolutions available in the camera. What differs on the Burano from Venice, both Venice and Venice 2, is that this camera is going to be 16 by 9 and 17 by 9 only. So no 4.3, no 3.2 open gate. It's strictly designed to be a 16 by 9 or 17 by 9 aspect ratio. And you do have resolutions in 8.6K, in a full frame crop 6K, in Super 35, 5.8K, again, both 16 by 9 and 17 by 9, and Super 35 crop 4K, 17 by 9 for high frame rate up to 120 frames per second. That's pretty powerful.
And where are we looking at for frame rates for 8.6K and everything else?
8.6, I do have a slide actually that's going to show the perfect lead into that.
Rehearsed.
I told you this was the one that we really had to hit, and we nailed it.
Yep. Tom's got a black belt, man. He's good.
So if we take a look at the slide here, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but it's pretty simple to follow. You have your different imager modes, full frame crop, Super 35, and Super 35 cropped, the aspect ratios that come with them, right? So you can see the first three from top to bottom, all 17 by 9 and 16 by 9. The last one, Super 35 crop 4K, is 17 by 9 only. Now, also one thing to note that true 24p is available only in the 17 by 9 aspect ratio. Okay, that's important to fully understand. That's really not an issue because people shooting 16:9 are shooting for TV, and true 24p isn't something you're really going to be selecting for TV frame rates. You're going to be 23.98, you know, the 30 frames per second at 29.97 and so on. So, moving on, we have our codecs. And in our codecs, again, this camera is taking on some a nice selection of codecs. We have the standard XAVC, which is our H.264 in resolutions of 4096 by 2160. So your DCI spec 4K, your 3840 2160, which is what I like to call 4K for television. So that's that 16 by 9 aspect ratio. I mean, all the TVs out there on the market, they all say 4K on it,
Yep.
right? Technically, 4K is 4096 by 2160, but 4K for television really is 3840 by 2160. And then, of course, still HD available, 1920, 1080. I'm amazed at how many folks are still delivering in HD, so we give you the tools to do that. And this is available in both intra-frame and long op. So you have the long op for the longer recordings. You have the intra-frame for doing color grading, green screens, things like that, where you want more information within each frame.
Nice.
Okay. Stepping up, we added another codec, H.265 HEC, which is designed to handle the higher resolution 8K, both available at 8192 by 4320. These are some newer numbers for me to memorize. and 7680 by 4320. The new codec is available as an intra in HQ, an intra in SQ, and also a long op version.
Is there a philosophy behind adding that?
Well, it's a more efficient codec, so when you have that much information to scan and record, certainly having that as an option is much more advantageous. Now, you do have to watch out and make sure your systems, your edit systems, can handle those things. My understanding is the new Macs are really good for that, according to someone I had a conversation with yesterday. And then, of course, my favorite, the XOCN LT. So, 16-bit linear raw, and although it doesn't have all three like in the Venice, this is the one that's become the most popular because it's the best bang for your buck in terms of you got reasonable amounts of data and it's a visually lossless compression. So you have the advantages, all the advantages of shooting raw, which we all know, and now you can do that without having 5-minute loads, 10-minute loads on your cards. I mean, it's, you know,
A new hard drive every time you shoot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it really does, and you can see by the image to the right, the efficiency of H.265 versus 264. So you can see that's why we chose that for the 8K.
Nice.
All right. So a little bit operational here, like a layout of the side of the camera. You could see we have one here, but this sort of makes it a little bit clearer to see. Again, sporting the Cine Alta logo, having the E-mount attached in this image. There's a small speaker just above the Sony logo. There's a little latch to open the door to allow you to insert your CF Express Type B cards. So slot A and slot B. So traditional Sony layout in that regard. A slot select button, so you're able to switch your to either card at any given time. Headphone connector. And of course, we do have a proxy card slot as well. So when you're doing that,
The SD
XOCN, yeah, the SD slot right there, covered by the little rubber cover, right? SD card for proxy and utility. So when you're doing your XOCN and you've got those higher data rates, you want to be able to have a lower res version of the recording as well, and you can apply the LUTs to that. So you'll have your proxy, you do your offline with the proxy, you grade your footage, working with your XOCN, and then you conform in your post environment. And then also there is an internal microphone that is not your, I want to capture audio at the other end of the room. That's why we have lavalier microphones and shotgun microphones and so on. That's more of a director's track in a sense. Moving on to the other side, we have a couple SDI outputs. So we have our 12G out. Actually, on top of that is HDMI. So HDMI, 12G out, and a 3G out as SDI 2. There's a time code in out. So there's a switch on the side of the camera that lets you determine which camera is going to output time code and which one is going to input time code. Gen lock. And then moving over slightly to the right, we have both lank and the jack for the grip. Now this is the new grip, which I will talk about in a little bit, but I do love the fact that it's got this new lever for quick adjustments, and it's much easier to demonstrate when it's on the camera, but pulling this lever down allows you to move the handle without having to loosen the grip.
Oh, that's cool.
As in previous models. Okay, and I'll have the model number listed here. That is going to be an accessory though.
Okay.
So that will not be included with the camera. Included with the camera is actually the top handle with the LCD panel, and there's some really special things with that LCD panel. And of course, the viewfinder loop, which this LCD panel will swing back and forth. So it swings out to the side to attach the loop, and it is a simple tongue and groove, and that will allow you to flip up or drop it down for when you bring the camera to here for shoulder mount shooting. Okay, so it's a lot of flexibility, and this mount also can mount to the opposite side of the camera. I've got some images there that show the different modes of operation if you were doing more project style shooting. We have the traditional grip attachment, assignable buttons. There's assignable buttons everywhere. There's 11 in total.
It's a Sony. It's like what you guys do. It's an autofocus and assignable buttons.
I love assignable buttons. And the best thing about that is we have an information page. So if you just press the menu button, just a quick touch, very much like our FX6, it brings up a quick change menu that also has status. So if you forgot all 11, I mean, you should be able to memorize 11 assignable buttons, come on. But if you can't, you can simply switch to a status page and see all of those buttons on the same page.
Or if you hand it off to somebody, they got to know where everything is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And also, I was mentioning the slot for the SD card. It's not just for proxy recordings, but also for utility files. So your all file, which is the overall setup of the camera. So as a rental facility, anything like that where you want to set up the cameras real quick, you have that slot to back up the camera. And also, as individual users, you could save your user files, which is basically your own built menu system that you can save and pull up as you want it. So if there's multiple users using the camera, you're able to switch. Oh, it's my turn. I got the camera today. I'm going to use the card in my bag and set up the camera the way I like it.
Well, it's also rental. If you pull out rental, you can have that card just get working with your profile going.
100%. Okay, on the back of the camera, please note that it is a V shoe mount battery system. There is a rear tally just below that, and there's the rear view of the connectors that I mentioned previously. Additionally, a LAN connection as well. The LAN connection will be used down the road to allow for RCP control using our RCP 3000 series over a network. DC in, XLR, 4-pin, also for AC for power. All right, so here's what I was talking about earlier. The Viewfinder, it's the same 720 panel in terms of resolution that you would see on an FX6 or an FX9. However, one of the things folks love about the Venice cameras is having those big 6 buttons on the side of the camera. The buttons that allow you quick access to your frames per second, your exposure index, your shutter speed, your looks, your white balance. So that's all built in right here across the top and the bottom on the panel itself. And it's on the slide as well. And so I can quickly select one of those buttons. It brings me into that category, make those quick adjustments, right? So I have the home button in the upper left-hand corner, right up in the top left of there, just below the 11th assignable button. Did I say there was 11 assignable buttons? And a little joystick to navigate as well. So there's a number of ways to navigate. We do have our multifunction dial, things like that. We'll get to the front side of the camera soon. Okay, or did we skip that? Oh wait, yeah, so let's go back here on the front side of the camera. I think I skipped through a few things that didn't have arrows. In the center area here, right up, I don't know where's my mouse on this thing, but in the area, let's say where the speaker is, so diagonally to the left is the area of your electronic variable ND, so you have your plus or minus to engage the ND. You have a switch that switches you from presets to variable, in which case you then use the dial that's to your right. A couple more assignable buttons, your display button, which turns your display on and off. You've got a little thumb joystick as well as a multi-dial just below the display button. Giant record button, you can't miss that one. Oh, and what I really love about the Viewfinder is the data is wrapped around it. So as we look at the Viewfinder in certain shooting modes, and I'm not seeing that image, there was a big request to have the information around the image instead of all on top, and so you've got a lot of that information laid around. Okay.
Quality of life.
Quality of life. All right, and you can see the different configurations here with the eyepiece Viewfinder connected with just the LCD panel from a couple of different angles. All right, in terms of other configurations, again, we have the PL mount, so you can have the PL mount and the LCD panel with the eye tube. You have the solo operation, which you can use E-mount lenses. You can use the panel facing towards you when it's on your shoulder without the eye loop. And of course, you can flip that around to the opposite side of the camera, have your AC work some magic on that side, freeing you up as the operator. And you can see tripod and shoulder mount. It's going to be just what you're used to in terms of your shooting requirements. Now I mentioned the VPG 400 certified CF Express Type B memory cards. It's a mouthful, but it's really important because you have to have cards that are VPG 400 certified.
Yeah.
That's to be able to handle all the speeds. If you look at the note at the bottom, non-VPG CF Express Type B cards are not guaranteed for normal operation.
It's sustained speed.
It's all about the sustained speed.
Yeah.
Correct. And we have them available in both 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte sizes. So if you're shooting HD, you could shoot for an extremely long period of time. I'm not going to do the math on that one, but it's a very long period of time. But it's certainly enough if you're shooting 8K, at XOCN or in H.265 and you have your 2 terabyte card, you're going to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And again, you can shoot on these cards at the same time you can shoot your proxy video as well. Okay, I mentioned the hand grip earlier. It is called the GP for grip.
Wow.
VR100. And so it has that flexibility of rotating with just a lever, and it is compatible with the FX6 and the VCT FSA5 as well. Okay, I don't see the FX9 listed here, so I'm not 100% sure on that compatibility, but it is definitely compatible with the FX6 and VCT FSA5.
Yeah, that said, this is preliminary, right? This is the information we have now. So, and you got a long lead up till...
Yeah, we have a long lead up to shipping, which is going to be in spring. And as always, things are subject to change.
Yeah.
Right? So there's our little disclaimer in there. But very nice grip. And again, that is an option. So this is not something that's included with the camera. Included with the camera is the handle, the LCD panel with the eye loop. And I believe that's it.
Okay.
All right, so that's the basic presentation. The camera itself, I've spent some time with it down in Cine Gear in Atlanta. It was very well received. My own experience with it, I really liked working with it. I primarily support our FX cameras in the cinema line. So FX30, FX3, FX6, FX9, FR7. I have some support on the Venice side, but my primary support is on the cameras that I just listed. And if you're coming from FX6 and FX9, it's such a joy to use. I've been going around with my colleague Paul Healy, and Paul is our Venice expert, and I'm our FX expert, and so our combined minds made it very easy to sort of find out the best ways to use the camera. The menu system is very user-friendly for FX6 and FX9 users, very similar to Venice as well. There are obviously some new features in there that aren't going to be in those menu systems because of the new features in the camera, like the PL support for in-body image stabilization. So those things will be a little bit different, and there are some different variances in terms of, like, when I select this resolution, I get these features. When I select that resolution, just like with any camera.
Yep.
So, but the most important thing to know is it's a powerful camera for 17:9 and 16:9 aspect ratios, all different resolutions, from 8.6, from 5.8, from 4K, Super 35 and full frame, from E-mount and PL style shooting, so you have all that flexibility. Oh, and there's even clear mid-zoom in this camera, by the way. And it's not in the slide, but I did utilize the clear mid-zoom, and it was pretty mind-blowing to some people when I had a PL lens on the camera and I zoomed with it.
Yeah.
So, and again, only available in certain modes, but there's a lot of advantages to a technology like clear mid-zoom.
That's in all resolutions, the clear image zoom?
No,
You need the 8K to keep the resolution
exactly.
while you're in the low resolution digital crop.
Exactly. So when you're using clear mid-zoom, you are able to zoom in with any lens. So if clear mid-zoom is capable in that particular mode, I can put on our 28 to 135, which is more of a run and gun style lens. It's probably not the most popular choice for maybe Burano, more like an FX6 type thing, but a lot of people are still going to use it because they want to be able to servo zoom.
Right.
And you can do from 28 to 270 if you're getting a 2x clear mid zoom.
And it's kind of parafocal. Like, it's kind of like, because it's not an optical zoom.
Yeah, it's
sort of.
It's not digital zoom, so let's get that part clear. So there's no pixelation, right? It's visually lossless, and you don't lose any light. Those are the benefits of clear mid zoom. But the part that I love is that I could put on a 50 millimeter 1.2 lens on there and turn that into a 50 to 75 or 50 to 100 when I'm using a function like clear mid zoom. And it maintains the aperture. So you have this camera that can just get so much more from your lenses that you're using, whether you're in PL or E-mount lenses. Now, it's always going to be when you use the E-mount lenses that you're going to have the most power from this camera in terms of utilizing the 5-axis image stabilization versus 3-axis in PL, utilizing the fast hybrid autofocus system, and having the combination of, wow, just thought of that, fast hybrid autofocus, electronic variable ND, and in-body image stabilization all in one camera.
Yeah.
And there's no camera like that anywhere. So it's
It's right here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, there is. It's called Burano. And it's coming in the spring. We're really excited about it. And we hope you are too. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
and
coming.
we look forward to bringing Burano to the market.
And if you're watching online, links obviously in the description below for more specs and everything. Of course, as we said, the information is going to change about this camera because it's, what do you got, like a few months to go before we can even get out to the room? Yeah, so
Springtime
things are going to change. You know, that's how this industry is. Tom, thanks so much for giving us a quick look at this thing. We're going to cut out on the live stream now, but if you have any question about the Burano, hit us with a comment down below. We'll do our best to answer it as the live stream marinates out there. Tom, thanks, man. Yeah. Appreciate it. I know the thumb. My man is a black belt, broke a bunch of boards and his thumb. I got to give you a shout out on that. It's a cool video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.